Good morning, y'all. Welcome to Unity of Springfield, Adult Education and World Thought. And this morning we have Les McClelland with us, and he's going to be talking about the mechanics of consciousness. Enjoy.
Good morning. Good to see everyone here this morning. We trust you've had a wonderful week and everything's going well for you. We welcome you to this session. We're going to be talking about the mechanics of consciousness in and of itself. And one of the interesting things about it is that in New Thought and Unity particularly, consciousness is a word that is bandied around. And often I found that a lot of people really don't understand what it's all about. And so we're going to explore that here this morning. We want to welcome all of you online. We trust that you've had a good week and that you're settled in for the next hour or so as we explore this subject. The great thing about the ability to explore such a topic as the mechanics of consciousness is that we are able to hopefully become somewhat introspective as well as extrospective. In other words, we need to take a good look at who we are and what we're all about. Consciousness is a catch-all phrase in some people's minds and ideas, in my opinion, and yet it is a medium, if I can use that word, through which interesting things are able to materialize. We have to deal with a change in the way we look at ourselves in order to understand that, because consciousness is not something that has parameters to it. It is pervasive. We're talking about the infinite nature of life itself. And so if we look at ourselves and we look at our bodies and we remember back to certain times in our lives that we've lived through and things that we've done or not done or has been done to us or not done to us, all of those are memories of the past, but they still remain somewhat alive within ourselves. And all of those experiences have a direct impact on us unless we're able to basically begin the process of cleansing them and putting them in their proper order. Consciousness is, if I can use that, this idea is a medium within which all things are possible. Within all of us, if we look at the research that's been done on the topic of consciousness, which is vast. I mean, if you go on to Google, isn't that a wonderful thing to be able to have access to? You can go on to Google and you can pull a subject up and you can get access to information that has been materialized from the research that other people have done over the years and be able to benefit from that research and perhaps catch sight of a new and insightful perspective of yourself and the world in which you live. So if we look at the infinite, and let's just start there, we look at the infinite nature of life itself, we need to know that we are living the infinite. It's right here. We're a part of it. We are an ingredient, if I can use that word, within the journey, where the infinite is beginning to materialize out, and it's creating things in our lives. You're going through a process right this moment, we all are, whereby the infinite is flowing through us and producing a result for us that we've opened ourselves up to experience. We're not a victim of that. We are a participant in it. And so it's important for us to understand that point because there's no such thing really in truth, in in the ability to perceive life as a victim of anything. Now, I know I said that, and I know that can be controversial, and I know there's a host of information out there that would try to prove me wrong, but when you get right down to it, if we're a participant, we are a self-creator of getting ourselves in the position through which certain things take place. We, in this particular dimension of life, have a tendency to classify all of our experiences. We classify them as good, not interesting, sometimes somewhat laughable, and not so good. And depending upon your mindset, you might even call it evil. You know, we can create all of these labels out here, but the point is that we are a participant. We've allowed our consciousness, our mind, our ability to work with the very ethers of creation itself, to bring forth into our lives experiences that some of which, as I was indicating, we like, and some of which we don't like. We try to manipulate things in our world to get the results that we want. You go to all kinds of classes on different subjects, whether it's prosperity or health or friendship or the Bible, whatever. We go to all of those classes to try to gain insight, and we try to gain insight to an old message that has been sitting there from a perspective that has prevented us from opening it up and seeing the message and calling ourselves, I don't understand. You know, we find ourselves trying to figure it out with old information that's not capable of providing us. So we have to make some changes. That's the point I want to get into. Consciousness has structure in and of itself. When I say structure, I'm not talking about a parameter of height and width or whatever. I'm talking about a kind of structure that exists within the infinite. There is a structure within the infinite nature of life. And life is more than just this body. It's more than the body of a friend, a loved one, a pet. It's more than an experience of interactions between one another. Those are experiences. But life in and of itself, within the topic of consciousness, has no parameters. It is infinite. And we have difficulty with that. We really do. Because our language that we use challenges us. It's not been designed to make it possible for us to really consider what consciousness is all about. And because when we deal with the infinite, we have to get rid of certain perceptions. The perceptions that we have to get rid of are such things as you're over there and I'm over here. And as long as you don't see me, I can say what I want and it will not affect you. In the infinite, there's no distance. There is oneness. The moment you make an utterance of sound, whether you hear it or not, it's impacting you, but not just you, but all of creation. Good friend of my wife's and I, many years ago, was the minister at Unity Village. His name was Sig Paulson. And he got up one Sunday morning, he and Janie, and the two of them worked together every Sunday. And he got up and he raised his hand up. There was about 1,000, 1,500 people sitting there, and he began to wiggle his finger like this. Didn't say a word. Did that for about 5 or 10 minutes, and pretty soon people started to chuckle because they thought it was getting funny, you know. And finally, after about 5 or 10 minutes, he said, "You know what I'm doing?" And you're wriggling your finger. He said, "No, I'm tickling the tickle bone of the universe." His point was, which was important for everybody there that morning, is for us to always realize that what's going on in our head doesn't end in our head. You carry it with you. It's pervasive. It reaches out and touches other people. You may never see the impact that you're having in this universe, in this world, but I assure you, every thought you think, every action you take, every emotion that you generate, and the emotions that we have, we generate. Nobody else is generating them for us, which means that nobody can make you mad. You make yourself mad. You know, nobody creates disappointment for you. That's an internal job that we do for ourselves. Everything in the world that is going on around us is impacting everybody else in the world that is here right now in this dimension of life. It's a tough lesson to learn, but it is the truth. All life is an expression of the infinite. It comes in forms and shapes and all of that. Now, first thing I want to address here this morning is the fact that we all have a role to play in one another's life. You know, every single one of us, we have a role to play. What we do and how we fill that role is a personal choice. How we live our lives is a personal choice. What we decide to believe is a personal choice. But all of those personal choices that we're making, they all have a direct impact upon the way we perceive life and life reacts to us. In other words, we are generating the medium through which great things can take place. We are not a victim of circumstances. We are a participant of circumstances. That's the first thing I want to share with you this morning. The challenge, I think, in understanding this is that there is a difference. When you deal with consciousness, there is a difference that takes place when a person grasps the idea that consciousness is pervasive, it is infinite, and that you can't get away with anything. Nothing. Nothing's a secret. You go to the Testament, New Testament, the Old Testament. I'll use the New Testament first. Jesus in the book of Matthew, and a couple of other verses too, or books that is there, he has something that we've titled Sermon on the Mount. Remember that? Where he comes into an area and all these people are following him. He's got their attention, and so he goes outside the town where they all live. He goes up on the hillside, and if you've ever been in a mountainous area, if you get on a hillside and look down, your voice carries pretty good. You know, you think about Sweden and those folks that make these yells, and after a while, the yell comes back to you. You know, it's an echo kind of a thing. Well, Jesus is in that kind of environment. And all these people are out there, and he begins to teach them. He begins to tell them about what he's all about and what his message is. Because in understanding his message, they have the opportunity to change themselves, to change their life, to create a new experience for themselves that is different than anything they've ever experienced before. The problem is, when we get new information like that, we try to stack it up against the old information over here. And a lot of times, the new information is not compatible. Okay? It's not compatible. And we try to understand it from an incompatible or an uncompatible perspective, which is difficult to say the least, if not very challenging, because this cannot accommodate to this. And so he goes on to talk to them a lot about the different things that they need to begin to think about and to live their lives, and a moral code and compass for their life and everything else. But this incompatible background is there, and even Jesus cannot turn a person around. They have to be a willing participant. Okay? We can look at all of the healings that take place. The only people that got healed were people that were willing to change this. And that can get into a host of other things that I won't get into, but it has to deal with forgiveness and a lot of other things that we have problems with and all. But Jesus finally says to them very simply, wake up. And this is not his words. This is my interpretation of what he said. He says, wake up. If you really want something different, you've got to change what's going on inside here. The incompatible cannot produce what you're wanting. This has to change first. Okay? This has to change first. So all of this is taking place, and in that environment, we're talking about conscious now, in that environment, a little bit goes a long way. A very little bit goes a long way. About the size of a grain of mustard seed. Remember that old story about faith? Size of a grain of mustard seed can move mountains. This is our mountain. The incompatible background that causes us to judge and to be, allows ourselves to be judged as worthy or not worthy, that kind of stuff. So, in preparing for this morning, one of the interesting things, when I chose the subject for this morning, mechanics of consciousness, it was off the top of my head at the time, and they needed a title for this particular class, and so I said mechanics of consciousness. Little did I know what door I had opened, because I went on to Google and I got about 15 pages of research that different people have done on that particular subject. And I never in my wildest dreams imagined that somebody had done that. I thought, mechanics of consciousness, that's a catchy term, you know? So I got on the computer, Googled it, and I got all these pages. I even got pictures here of the universe that they've come up with and everything. And I began to think about, what have I done? You know, I had worked on the lesson. This is my draft. This is the research that somebody else had done. And this is about maybe 25% of what I was able to easily pull up. So if you want to do that, just go on to Google and say consciousness mechanics or mechanics of consciousness, and you'll be overloaded with the research that has been done by a variety of different people, some of which are smarter than I am. Okay, now that's a self-evaluation of myself in proximity to what other people that I perceive to be smart are like. See, so we fall into the traps often. So consciousness is merely a self-induced environment contained within the perception we have about our life, through which we develop a perspective of ourselves and the world in which we live. Okay? That's consciousness. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Sounds not, but that's what it is. And whether we understand it or not doesn't mean that it doesn't perform. It still performs in spite of the fact we don't understand it. Okay? The interesting thing about it is that your consciousness and my consciousness are not the same. They're different. In the same way that you are different than what I am. The life you've lived is different than the life I've lived. Right? You know, I'm a male, 212 pounds of it, 81 years of age, been in ministry since 1971. Seen a lot of things pass by me, some of which I participated in and some of which I did not. Same thing, whatever your age is, you have gone through a lot in your journey. I'm going to say something here now, and I want you to make a note of it in your mind. If you're taking notes, write it down. The classification that we label what our history is like and the things we've gone through is either going to free us from the past or help us drag it along with us. In other words, as long as it's able to live within us, it will remain alive within us. If you want to get rid of it, stop feeding it. What happens when you stop feeding something that's accustomed to being fed? Does it go away?
It resists.
Yeah, it resists, doesn't it? I mean, a little bit when it gets hungry. And let's talk about food real quick. This is a diversion. When you get hungry, what do?
Eat.
Eat, or begin to look for something to eat. And you'll find something. Maybe it's not what you really prefer, but it's there. So you decide to participate and partake of it to satisfy what? The hunger that you're feeling inside of you. If the result of that action is counterproductive to the health that you currently have, it means you've eaten something you shouldn't have. Right? Yeah. Who's at fault? Is the food that you ate at fault because your body didn't agree with it?
No.
What? Then who's at fault?
You were. My participation in it.
Your participation. Yeah, but what promoted the participation?
The thought that you were hungry.
The fact you were hungry, okay. But you chose, something in you drove you to make that decision. What was it? Go back further. What was it?
You were taught if you're hungry, you eat.
Yeah,
So it's what you were taught in your past.
yeah. So what you were taught creates the opportunity for something to take place, right? The end result. And the end result is not always something that we enjoy, right? What happens when we eat too much?
We're uncomfortable.
Really uncomfortable. Okay? We can be very uncomfortable with the result of a decision that we've made that has become possible because of our history as how we react to circumstances. Hunger. Okay? What happens if you're hungry and there's no food?
You find it.
You'll find it? Yeah, okay. That's an honest thing. You'll find it. What happens if you see the pie in the window that Mrs. Baker has been baking and it's sitting on the windowsill cooling, and you smell it and look over, no one's around, and you haven't eaten for 2 days.
Choices are made.
Choices are made, yeah. Yeah. Are they good choices or bad choices?
History kind of determines that.
Yeah, yes.
Neither, they're just choices.
They're just choices. That's right. They're just choices. They're choices that have results. Okay? Now let's say you take the pie. No one knows. Mrs. Baker is looking for her pie. She goes outside thinking it fell off the windowsill, and there's no sign of a pie there. The plate's not even there. The pan that it was baked in is not there. There's no sign of it anywhere. She's sure she put it on that windowsill. She knows she did. You know? What's the result? Yes.
You say no one knows, but somebody does. You do, which can create shame. You can choose to hold on to that shame, or you can choose to simply let it go.
Right. The thing is, you can't let it go. You can't. It's a part of you. The decision that you made has satisfied a hunger, but it's created a result that now has to be dealt with. Most people think they get away with it. Most people think that because they're not caught, they're free and clear. Not true. We all have to answer to the actions that we've taken. Jesus says it even goes beyond that. We have to answer to the very thoughts that we think, even though the act did not take place. If we think it, it is as if it has been done. Now you talk about a challenge. There's a challenge. There's a challenge. Many people live their lives in a manner that does not embrace that particular part of the message of Christ. Even if you think it, it's as if it has been done. Yes.
Well, how do you overcome it then? By affirmations, by positive thinking?
That's a part of it. There's no magic answer.
Meditation?
That's a part of it. It is whatever you need to do it. There's no simple answer. There really isn't. Other than an internal guidance that exists, spark of divinity that exists within us, that motivates us to address it. Now, many people think that in the process of trying to deal with issues like this, that if they just forget about it, it'll go away. It doesn't go away. It continues to reside within you until somewhere along the line, it reaches a point that demands attention. Because ultimately it will. It really will. It's like it'll sit there. Just imagine a medium right here in front of me that is filled with all possibilities. Okay, and you drop this little piece of action into it, and it disappears from sight. We cannot see it anymore, but we know it's there because we put it there. You know, this is our consciousness right here, right in front of us. Just imagine that.
Is this a universal consciousness that we're talking about, that we're all sharing? Is that the consciousness you're talking about now?
No. I'm talking about your consciousness. Your consciousness, okay? Your consciousness. And it's right there in front of you. You know it's in there, but you can't locate it. But you remember it. And then you forget about it. Years go by and circumstances surface in your life whereby it triggers that memory when you took the pie. And you think, well, I was just a kid. I didn't know any better. You know, that's what kids do. Okay? But the memory's still there. And the shame hasn't been dormant. It's building. And then something else comes along that's similar in nature. And we have to deal with it, and it causes us to remember that. You know, there's a connection between all things. Within this medium of possibilities that exists within us, the opportunity to create a cleansing through which other things can materialize on their own, are made possible. But we don't know the answer. And yet we know it's there. So how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that? Jesus addressed these hard answers simply. It has to deal with forgiveness of yourself, cleansing it through that sincere forgiveness. And there's no playing around with that, by the way. It's really real or it's not real. And it's an internal job. Doesn't matter whether anybody else agrees with it or not. What matters is where you are. And once that cleansing has happened, you're set free from it. If somebody else remembers it and remembers that you were the one that committed the act, then because they choose not to forgive you doesn't mean that your forgiveness is non-existent. It means it's still real. Nobody can deny you the cleansing of forgiveness. No one. Whether they agree with it or not, no one. It's your journey. It's your life. So your consciousness, personal, is different than yours or yours or yours or mine or yours. We're all different. We're all unique. We have backgrounds that have a variety to them. We have touch points within our life's journey that sometimes causes us to spark. We react. And in the reaction, whatever is close to the similarity of that spark that's causing us to react, everything that is a back of that part of that background energizes that spark. Okay? Nothing is left untouched. Everything is there. So when you're 81 years of age and you remember that you took a little knife from John's grocery store that was sitting on the counter, that you were 2.5 years of age, and you brought it home, stuck it in your pocket so your dad wouldn't see it, and you hid it in the bottom of your closet so it couldn't be found. And mom comes along and begins to clean the closets out and finds this brand new little knife that you got back there, and you've forgotten about it. And she comes out and she says, "Who does this belong to?" And you remember it's yours. And you say to her, "I don't know, Mom." Because you know, and she said, "Well, I'm going to put it up here and we'll figure it out later when your dad gets home." Oh, Lord. Okay? Oh, Lord. And so dad comes home, or it gets close to time when dad comes home, and you're thinking to yourself, in my household, the switch was the answer. Green switch off of a tree. And I know that mom is not as strong as my dad. Therefore, the switching will be less brutal than what it would be if he's doing it. And dad has a motto he stands by. And that is, believe it or not, when mom says it, it's the law. There's no trying to explain it away or anything like that. It is what it is. And so when she tells him and she suspects something, If she doesn't have the answer, all four of us boys are going to get the same punishment.
Ooh.
So we're in a position where we need to really pony up. Okay. So you go up and you say, Mom, I just remembered. Funny, I just remembered. I took it from John's grocery store about a week ago or two and brought it home. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I did. I said, well, that's fine. Bend over. And the switching comes, and then she says, we're not through. Guess what? Have to go back to John's grocery store with a knife in your hand and admit. Why would she do that?
I did once to my kids. I wanted to teach them a lesson.
Teach them a lesson. Let them learn something. You don't take something or try to take something that doesn't belong to you. Valuable lesson. It really is. In consciousness, you may be wondering what that's got to do with consciousness. It's all a part of the medium. It's there. And until it gets resolved, it remains there as it is, as an agitation. Okay? As an agitation. It brings results in its own time, in its own way. And you can't count when that will happen. You can't. Yes.
But I just have to be honest. I find this very depressing.
Pardon?
I find this very depressing. Because how do you know years ago you did something? And you're saying you retain that in your consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah.
But all you can do is to pray or meditate and ask God to forgive you. What else is there?
It has to create change within you.
To be a better person?
Yeah, to be a better you. God created all of us. The great thing about all of this is really it holds great promise for all of us. Even though we are ignorant of our past sometimes because we've forgotten about it, even though that continues to reside within that pool, that medium of possibility, even though we don't remember it, it will surface. And when it surfaces, we have the opportunity to cleanse it. And that's the great promise. Nothing is beyond the reach of being transformed.
And
Nothing.
I also think that if you, in his case where he mentioned, okay, so you steal something, but it can make you more forgiving when somebody else steals something. So now I'm 80 and this child has stolen from me. Because I remember I stole as a child, I can be more forgiving, more accepting.
Or more compassionate to what hunger might have prompted this young person to do.
Yeah, that too. And this is an important point. This is an important point for all of us to learn. It's different for everyone. How you deal with your life and bring about improvement, whatever direction you choose to attempt to do that, is your journey. My journey, everybody else's journey is unique. We're all different. But the similarity exists is that this medium remains consistent. It makes all things possible. Nothing is beyond its reach. Everything is possible within the capability of the medium. Okay? So I've been talking about this medium. Okay? I want to ask a couple of questions. What form is it? Does it have form?
Consciousness,
Yeah. This medium.
I think it can take form.
Okay.
I believe that it can take form, yes.
Okay, but what form is it?
Energy.
What's it look like?
Everything around us.
Okay. So it doesn't have parameters,
No.
or it does?
Consciousness? No, my consciousness or God's
Yours.
mine. Does it have limitation? Only by what I limit it with, by my experiences.
Okay, all right. What color is it?
I don't. I mean, as far as if it's everything that's around me, I cannot say this is the color of consciousness or this is definitely. I know what it is, but I don't have the words to describe it.
Okay, all righty. Does it move with you, or does it reside in one place?
I think it's everywhere.
Okay,
I don't think it moves with me. I think it's everywhere.
it's everywhere.
Yes.
Does it change?
Consciousness? I think it's my consciousness, my experiences change, but consciousness itself does not change.
Right. That would be my
But I think our consciousness can grow and expand.
Oh, it can expand. How can it expand if it is infinite?
Well, are we talking about ours?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's our awareness that expands.
Okay. Awareness of it expands?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. These are interesting questions, and we try to answer them within the framework of our thinking that we've become very accustomed to. And when we run up against the infinite versus the finite, they don't fit into one another. They don't. And so we have problems with that. Yeah.
Because like you were saying before, it's my limitation. It's my experiences that causes the new or the understanding to, well, how do you word it, that it hits up against it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, is there something wrong with that? Should it be different?
Should it be? Yes, I don't think that's what God created us for.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're meant, like you said, we're all one. Everything we do affects somebody else. So if you live as Jesus taught and as Jesus lived, then I think that's what we're striving to be.
Okay. All right. It's a challenge, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We try to fit something that is really totally foreign to us into something that we're very familiar with. It's like I have a shoe that I really love wearing, and I want to give it to you. And I expect you to have the same experience with that good old shoe that is so comfortable to wear. And I'm giving you a prized possession of mine for you to have so you can enjoy the comfort of the shoe. And you put the shoe on and you say, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, boy, no respect. I've given you something that I prize, and you're saying, oh my God. What do you think is happening? Have I made a mistake?
Well, from your standpoint, of course you didn't make a mistake. That was what you wanted to bring into what your consciousness wanted to share.
Okay.
Okay. The fact that the other person did not receive it the way you had intended doesn't mean that your intentions of your consciousness to share it still wasn't a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Your response to it, and I had a conversation recently about stimulus and response. The person you shared it with is not responsible for how you receive or your your response to the stimuli then that's thrown back out.
Yeah.
Any more than her consciousness or the person receiving's consciousness is responsible for how you wanted them to respond.
Right.
They're separate. I do have a question about this universal consciousness and how this is meant to be shared between the two of y'all. How do you rectify the fact that the two consciousness don't have at this point the same?
And I have an answer for that.
There.
There's no such thing as an individual consciousness. It's all one. But we have to break it down enough that gives us the opportunity and the ability to try to figure it out. It's like the old adage, how do you eat your food? Do you take a little bite at a time or do you shove it all in? Take a bite at a time, don't you? And you chew it. And according to nice eating habits, you chew it so many times so the flavor of the food can be brought out and you enjoy the food that you're eating. Okay? You take a bite at a time to enjoy the meal. You don't try to shove it into your mouth. However, some people do that, but you take it a bite at a time. We have to figure out the infinite from the finite. It's a challenge. There's no one answer that is appropriate for everyone. There's similarities. It's the best we can get to it, is similarities. That's the reason why I said to you, this medium doesn't exist, but we try to create an image that enables us to bring to the fold, to the front, an ability to comprehend something that our current level of understanding doesn't make possible. So we try to take it a little bit at a time, It's like, have you ever seen any pictures from the Hubble telescope? Aren't they beautiful?
Yes.
Absolutely. Whoever thought that space had clouds? Now think about that. Whoever thought that space had clouds and that blackness had color? I mean, the technicolor of those clouds are just astounding. Astounding. And this blackness of space is filled with it. It's filled with it. What makes it possible for us to be able to see the clouds in space, not on Earth here, but in space? It is a medium that was created through the Hubble telescope. It makes it possible. It is able to see something that we can't see. It's able to bring forth a picture of this blackness, that it is alive, filled with great possibilities. It's not like what William Schaffner said when he went up in this thing and he came back. He says, there's depth up there and there's life down here. That's his ability, lack of ability to truly understand. There's not death up there. Does death exist up there? You bet. Does death exist here? You bet. Does life exist up there? Yes. Does life exist here? Yes. But it's not the same. It's different. It's different. And that's the great thing about the message of Christ and our consciousness. Our consciousness provides us an opportunity to really address the message of Christ in our own terms. In our own terms. Okay? Is your term wrong or is it right? It's neither. It's your term. It's your choice. It's your result. It is what it's going to be based upon what you do with it. Okay? So consciousness is a vessel, a vehicle through which great possibilities are made possible. As you think within you, so it will be outside of you. You bring forth that which you make room to manifest. Okay? In closing this morning, and by the way, this is an introduction to the subject of consciousness. If you really want to explore it, I refer you to Google. Really, I'm serious. This is from a book, Your Hope of Glory, by Elizabeth Sand Turner. She was a tremendous author, lecturer, and minister for Unity. She says, and this is on clouds of opposition. She says, as we are lifted in consciousness, the time comes when we are also to serve outwardly. But as we go forth in his name, material things do not give us the power to accomplish, yet a firm and steadfast consciousness coupled with a burning desire to do his work does supply the power. We do not need goals so much as we need ideas. Our physical needs will be provided as we serve him faithfully. So, the end result is your desire to grow will create the momentum that you need to do what you need to help bring forth and facilitate the manifestation of a change in your life. The desire to grow. Desire to grow. Desire to grow. You bring that to them. It's desire within you to change that makes a difference. Okay? And that's different for all of us. Your desire comes out of whatever your background is. God bless you in your journey. Thank you for being here this morning. And I turn this over to Sue.
Thank you. And Les, I just thought this was fascinating. Great job. This week, on Thursday at 12:30, we are doing mat weaving using Walmart bags. It takes about 1,000 bags per mat. We're doing weaving these mats for our unsheltered friends. It helps keep the cold coming up from the ground. And we've heard from some people that these mats have been real lifesavers when the weather gets bad. Also on Saturday night, we're having Spook Truncular. We're going to have decorated cars, giving out candy, and our Uniteens are putting on a haunted house. So we welcome you here at 5 p.m. on Saturday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.